Welcome to Tamara Tattletales. I'm Tamara, and I spill the tea on your favorite reality stars. Season 14 of Married at First Sight is underway. I don't know, is it just me or does it feel too soon? I feel like I'm still in recovery from last season. Like I still have a bunch of unanswered questions that are being pushed aside that I'm not ready to let go just yet. Well, I do have a few surprises for you guys regarding last season, so make sure you stay tuned to my channel. In the meantime, I watched the 3-hour first episode of season 14, so you didn't have to. You're welcome. They followed the normal formula of having the cast tell their families they're getting married, shop for wedding dresses and tuxedos, bachelorette and bachelor parties, and one wedding. Most of those scenes are boring. I'll give you guys the cliff notes of what we learned about these folks. Oh, and make sure you watch until the end because I have a little spoiler for you. So, while all the singles were talking to their friends and family, each person had a little montage scene where we learned more about them. In my opinion, this was mainly the Lindsay show. They nicknamed her the wild card. She has a huge personality, and right now she's good for some comedy relief. However, every time she talked to her father, he threw out some serious red flags. He basically said, "Don't be a raging bitch like you usually are, and things will work out fine." Okay, that was my interpretation of what he said. He actually said things like she's a lot to handle, she has no filter, and can say hurtful things that can be very devastating. Now, every time Lindsay talked about her mom, she started crying. Her relationship with her mom is very strained. Lindsay feels like her mom doesn't love her. They haven't seen each other in 3 years. When Lindsay tries to call her, she doesn't pick up the phone, and when she does pick up, her mom attacks her. A year ago, she almost got married, but the groom called off the wedding like 6 days beforehand, and she was devastated. They didn't mention this part, but the word on the street is she created a GoFundMe page because she spent all of her savings on the wedding and didn't have enough money to move out and get her own place. Mark calls himself MTS, which is short for Mark the Shark. Mark's mom has a lot of physical ailments, so she's at some sort of facility for care, but he does a lot for his mom, and he's concerned that his wife won't be nurturing to his mom. Katina is the party chick no more. She used to be a party girl, but says she's now ready to settle down and watch Netflix with her husband. She had a rough childhood. Her dad was in prison most of the time while she was a kid and didn't get out until she was an adult. She's been cheated on more than once and has been very protective of herself as a result. So, who do they pair her with? Elijah Wan, a man who claims to be a reformed player and cheater. He used to dog women out so bad that he went by a different name when he was running the streets. He called himself Isaac. Isaac was the immature partier who didn't care about ladies' feelings or protecting their hearts, so he lied to them and cheated on them. But have no fear, that's all in the past now. Isaac retired about 2 years ago. Now Elijah Wan is ready for a traditional wife, someone who will cook a hot meal for him every day, and not being able to cook is a deal breaker, and if she can't cook, then she's not a wife. As he puts it, we're not gonna be shaking cans to decide what's for dinner. He says he's proud to be a mama's boy, and his father died when Elijah Wan was 16 years old. Noe is nicknamed Quietly Noisy. I swear, where do they come up with those? So corny. Right now, Noe seems chilled, like a nice young lady. She thinks she's silly and goofy. We'll see. She said she seriously dated one guy who lived in Bulgaria and another one who lived in the UK. Well, not at the same time. Her point was that she'll go to the ends of the earth to find love. Steve is Mr. Free Spirit. That is actually an appropriate name for him, considering that he doesn't have a job and lives in a van. He seems to have some positive role models, though, in terms of good relationships. Steve's brother asked, "What are you gonna say when your wife asks you what you do for a living?" He rambled on and on about how he got laid off, went on a journey in his van, used to work at such and such, and open to finding something permanent. And his brother's like, so you're between jobs. His cousin said, I feel like she would want him to have a job. Thank you. Come on, Married at First Sight. Forcing someone to marry a person who is unemployed is not cool. I just hope he didn't burn through all his savings while living the van life. Jasmina is Miss No Nonsense. She's the third oldest of 9 kids, but doesn't know most of her siblings very well. Her biological mom walked out on her and her younger sister when she was around 2 years old. Her dad got remarried. She loved her stepmom, but then they got divorced and her dad moved back to Jamaica. So Jasmina asked the stepmom if she would take care of her and her younger sister. She agreed, and that's been a loving relationship ever since. In terms of dating, she feels like the men she's dated have been emotionally unavailable. The last guy she dated was creeping on her and had a baby with another woman. She feels like she's always the woman guys date to get their emotions in order. Then they move on to the next woman and have an emotionally healthy relationship. Michael, he's Mr. Training for Love. Oh, Mike, I don't have high hopes for him. So his dad passed away when Michael was 12 years old. His mom passed away when he was 20, and his brother died from a gunshot wound. Now, he's disappointed because he thought he'd have at least one child by now. However, all he talked about throughout this episode is how hard it is for him to open up and let a woman into his life. He says he picks them apart. He'll find one bad thing about her and amplify it and any other things he can find. So basically, he sabotages his relationships, says he doesn't want to be that way anymore, but doesn't seem to have done the work to change. Alyssa is nicknamed Looking for Her Forever Home. That's a play on words given her love for working with dogs who need adopting, helping them find a forever home. Get it? Anyway, Alyssa has dated a lot. She says she doesn't look like it, but she's actually a country girl. She likes horseback riding, farming, and cowboy boots. Now, Chris grew up with a single mom. His relationship seemed to be based on looks. He'll see a cute girl, ask her out, and then date her for 6 months before he realizes there's nothing there, and he just wasted both their time. He's like a champion at throwing discs in the woods, probably because he's the only one competing. Raise your hand if you've ever competed in a disc throwing contest in the woods. So after we get past everyone talking to their family and friends, the guys and ladies meet up to get to know each other. Now, Lindsay talked about how she gave the experts free range in terms of looks. She didn't care what he looked like as long as he didn't have a belly or baby teeth. Teeth that look like chiclets, she said. Alyssa told the story of her last relationship. She said 2 years in, she was at home cooking dinner. Then out of nowhere, he came home and said, "It's over," and broke it off with her. Meanwhile, MTS was telling boring cat stories. Olajuwon said no to consummating the marriage right away. He said if that happened, that he would judge her. The girls voted Noe as being the first one to consummate her marriage. Lindsay says it's because you always have to watch out for the quiet ones. And Picky Mickey carried on about how picky he is, and if he's not into someone, any little flaw will cause him to break up with them. They did the boring shopping thing where they watched them all try on clothes and have forced meaningful moments with their family and friends, blah, blah, blah. The bachelorette and bachelor parties are where we finally get to see some of their real personalities come out. Alyssa was extremely standoffish. While the other girls were chatting it up, dancing and cheering and getting to know each other, Alyssa was off in a corner booth with her 2 friends looking like they were peeping out the nearest exits. Mark was fired up and excited. He looked sincere and happy to be going through the process. He was like really soaking it all in. So far in this episode, Lindsay has a meta drink she doesn't like. Throughout the episode and during the bachelorette party, she expressed concern about her husband having a small penis. Olajuwon was in his element. He shouts out, "I love strippers." He had the stripper's butt all up in his face, her leg over his shoulder. He started stripping, took off his shirt. Meantime, I'm like, where's your mask and hand sanitizer? Mr. I Want a Traditional Wife said he wants a wife that he can take to a strip club and dare her to slap a stripper's booty. So while he's tearing up the strip club, Katina's talking about how she's never played with a sex toy and is not a freak in bed. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but that might be the reason why so many men cheated on you. We all know the saying, a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets. This sounds like the perfect storm that will turn Olajuwon back into cheating Isaac. Meanwhile, Noe's talking about how she wants to be a little aggressive when it comes to sex, while Steve is telling the guys he wants to take it slow. Chris is rambling on about something something or other. I don't know. He seems boring to me. Picky Mickey was carrying on about how he tends to hide his feelings, has walls up, and is afraid he won't be able to be vulnerable. Jasmina is telling her friends what a good communicator she is and wants the same in her spouse. Uh-oh. I thought the contrast between the two parties was interesting. The men had strippers and the women had drag queens. I have nothing against either, but that doesn't seem like an even playing field to me. Now, the funniest part of the night for me is when Lindsay said, "I love 90% of the brides I met. Jasmina looks like Naomi Campbell. She's gorgeous. Noe is your wild card. Y'all thought I was gonna be the wild card, but spoiler alert, it's always who you don't think. It's her." Katina, love it. She is personality. She knows what she wants, and I think she's gonna be interesting to watch. There's a fifth bride, right? Wait, what's her name? I mean, really, she's been missing. Talking about throwing shade. Lindsay and Alyssa will not walk away from this as friends. You can quote me on that one. In this episode, we only saw Lindsay and Mike get married, but that was enough because Lindsay was a hot mess. While she was getting her hair and makeup done, her friend said, "What do you want us to ask your husband? Like, what do you want to know?" She said, "Brush up against him and tell me what he's working with." Just kidding. After he got dressed, Mark called his mom and she was not excited at all for him. He was so excited, like, "Hey!" And she's like, "What?" "I'm getting married in an hour." "Oh God, Mac, I'm beside myself." He's like, "Think of it this way. I'll have someone to spend the rest of my life with." "Yeah, if she stays." "Why didn't you do it the right way?" Okay, apparently Mark got his optimism from his dad. Girl, bye. Lindsay plops her butt in the limo, and I mean plops. I am not accusing her of being graceful or classy at all. She is drinking that champagne like alcohol prohibition starts tomorrow, spilling it down her chest and probably on her dress. Ooh, child, what a mess. Right before it's time to walk down the aisle, she drops her bouquet in the ground, pulled down the front of her dress, digging in her boobs for her vows, and let out a loud, man-like belch. They seem to both be happy with each other at first sight. Lindsay was super chatty during the ceremony. She was like, "What's your name? What's your last name? How do you spell it? Oh, good, that's easy to remember." The officiant said they both have nice smiles, so she interrupted again. "Oh, he does have a nice smile. You have good teeth. That was like one of my deal breakers. Let me see your teeth. Very nice. How about mine?" Mark's like, "Okay, yeah, they're nice." Lindsay's like, "Yeah, thanks, Dad, for the braces." But I think it's funny, after Mark introduced himself, he said, "People call me the Shark." Lindsay said, "I hate sharks." So after forcing the ring over her drunken, swollen finger, they were pronounced husband and wife and exchanged a decent looking kiss. When they had some alone time to talk, Lindsay is chatting a mile a minute. "What time do you go to bed? Don't baby talk me. Don't feed me dairy." But Mark seems to be okay with it. At the end of the wedding, she's laying on a park bench in her wedding dress. Mark comes over. She starts talking about monkeys and visiting monkeys and monkey temples. This is going to be an interesting couple to watch. It will either go really good for them or really bad. I don't think there will be an in-between. As for the spoiler I promised you, well, word on the street is that one of the couples don't make it past 2 weeks. Which one? Alyssa and Chris. They've been shown arguing in upcoming previews and it looks pretty bad. But another thing I noticed is that when they flash the various couples all dressed up on decision day like they always do, they show Alyssa and Chris walking up to a building wearing everyday clothes, as if they don't have any footage of them on decision day. Don't look for a love connection between these two, but I hope I'm wrong for their sake.